Hi, I'm Pastor Tae of the Titus 2 Ministry and PastorTae.com. Welcome to Espresso. It's an interactive Bible study that is like Espresso, strong and smooth. Enjoy the taste. Welcome to Talk Live Tuesday. If you are in the audience, could you please give me a thumbs up and let me know if you can see it and also hear it. We've been having a lot of audio problems tonight.
George says hello.
And so, George, does that mean you can see it and hear it? I need a confirmation on both of those things tonight, okay? But this is our Facebook Live conversation inside the Titus 2 community. Any confirmation? No? Okay. And to those who are watching through our... don't just say hi. Tell me if you can see it and hear it, okay?
Said that, yeah.
Come on. So if you're watching through our YouTube channel called Espresso, welcome. We hope that you're blessed by it. Leave a comment there and we'll respond. But then please join us inside the Titus 2 community. Now, if you're watching this on a replay, that's good too. We get it that life happens and that you can't always join us live. And so know that all the replays are archived inside the Units tab, which is to the left if you are on a laptop or a desktop, and it's to the top if you are on a mobile device. And so anytime you can access it, and you will see as you go there that we are building a curriculum. And so how cool is that for newcomers as well as old timers? Access it anytime you want and drop a comment, leave a question, and we will get back to you. So far so good, Stuart?
They can see and hear you.
Okay, good. All right. Oh my goodness, what a day it has been, okay, with all the technical difficulties. But before we go any further, we blame this man for everything, okay? He is Stuart Martin, okay?
Wiping my hands clean.
Wiping. He is Pontius Pilate as well. But tonight we're going to have a conversation about marriage, okay? I'm going to take your questions and comments, apply the scriptures, and Lord willing, we will come to a biblical position on 4 major topics. They are communication, conflict, in-laws, sex. And then, after that 4-week rotation, we start the rotation all over again. And just want to take a second and give all the glory and praise to God that we are on our 3rd rotation. So how exciting that we can work our way through these 4 major topics. And so in our 3rd rotation, we are now on number 3, which is in-laws. And I gotta tell you, this by far, in comparison to the other 3, is the most complicated, the craziest out of them all. Even in terms of numbers, because the others, communication, conflict, and sex, involve 2 people. But here, with in-laws, obviously it involves so many different people and combinations, mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister, brother-in-law, and so forth. So very, very complicated. And so more than with the other topics, we're going to have to focus, okay, and take it one by one. And so tonight, our focus topic will be leaving, okay? You know, it says in Genesis chapter 2:24, I'm sure you know that, for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother. And so, by the way, I want to thank Dr. Don Owsley in Denver, Colorado. Everybody say hello to him. He is the one that's going to drop all the key points inside the scroll. So I'm thanking him in advance for that. Thank you, Don. In fact, he is more than qualified to teach this course. And so if you have a question or a comment, drop it in. I'll do my best to answer them. Stuart will mention them as well, but Dr. Don, jump in with your commentary as well. I also want to recognize George Zhao. I know I said his name wrong, but George, he is in there.
It's pronounced Joseph.
Joseph?
He told me last week.
George Joseph. Joe is what he's trying to say. All right, so welcome, George, and in fact, he is in there hosting our scroll experience there, and so thank you, George, for that. And so tonight we're going to focus. In fact, we're talking about leaving, and let me give you up front what the main or the big question is And Dr. Don, would you drop this in? I know I didn't ask you to put this, but it's the big question. The big one, which is, did you really leave? That's the big question for the night. And what we're going to do is we're going to ask 3 questions that will unpack the big question, which is, did you really leave? Now we're talking about Genesis 2:24, where it talks about leaving mom and dad, okay? So did you really leave? Let's ask 3 questions tonight. And the answer is yes or no, whether you left or not. And tonight, yes is the good answer. So you want to get 3 yeses, okay? If you get 3 yeses tonight, that is a perfect score. And so if you get a perfect score tonight, you will win the grand prize of absolutely nothing, okay? Well, except having a healthy in-law relationship, right? So let's get started, shall we? We're going to ask 3 sub-questions, unpacking the big question on the top, which is, did you really leave? Okay? So 3 sub-questions. Answer them yes or no, please. Here it is. Dr. Don, would you drop it in, please? Test question number 1 is, did you leave physically? By the way, I'm just a little nervous. Are we still okay? Audio-wise, visual-wise, everything looking good? All right, thank God for that. Test question number 1 again. Did you leave physically? Now this leaving in Genesis chapter 2 verse 24 does involve geographical separation, okay? Should I do this? You're actually walking away. You're moving away. You're jumping on a plane and going far, far away. So it's a geographical or physical separation. Packing your bags and moving out instantly creates a new unit, a new authority, a new world. And for newlyweds, that is God's design. And so physical separation is the most basic and clearest way of leaving. Makes sense, right? Did you physically leave? Yes or no? What'd you get? Okay? Now, wouldn't it be great if life was as simple as that? Yes or no? Unfortunately, life is not. I have been doing this a long time, over 30 years, and I have ran into all kinds of complications and crazy scenarios which have caused me to really think about life and just how crazy and exceptional, meaning there's a lot of exceptions to this thing. Because what I have seen and experienced and counseled is this, that even though God's word says, pack up and go, leave mom and dad, the truth is many have chosen not to leave. Many have chosen to go in the other direction and actually move in with mom and dad. And so because of that, it has caused me to think, and as well, the people themselves have asked the question, and it has raised the issue. The issue is it a sin? Drop it in the scroll, please, Dr. Don, thank you. Is it a sin to live with your in-laws or parents? Is it a sin? Some will say yes, others will say no. What say you? Yay or nay? I'm going to say yes and no. That is my answer. Please put that in the scroll. My answer is yes and no, because it's very hard to make a blanket statement that just covers everything, okay? That's just not going to be possible, as if to say it's always right or it's always wrong. You know, to the question, is it a sin? You know, I think we need to be very careful, especially with a 30-minute show like this. It's very difficult to make a blanket statement. I think we need to be careful and recognize the complications and special situations. And I do believe the Bible allows for special circumstances. So let's break it down. I did say yes and no, right? So allow me to unpack the yes and the no. I'm going to say yes, it can be a sinful situation. Again, that's how I deal with in counseling, is kind of work through the different scenarios to see which one is then applicable biblically into their lives. So yes, it can be sinful, for sure, because God's simple design is for you to pack up and go. But in this case, if you decide to actually move in, it definitely can be sinful because you're not leaving. You're staying. And when you're staying, let me just put it simply, you are staying in the same old situation. And what comes with that is a same old dynamic. Mom is still mom. You're still a son. The daughter is still a daughter. Everybody hasn't changed. There's no change involved whatsoever. So in the middle of no change, you're trying to bring a change of marriage, it gets a little crazy. In fact, in many cultures, the lines are all blurred. It's just one big, happy, bloated family. And so because of that situation, all the lines of loyalty and authority and any sense of identity, it gets all blurred. And it gets a little bit crazy. And I'm saying in that sense, there's got to be some sin involved, because you haven't left and you have actually invited all kinds of problems. So I'm going to say, yes, it can be a sin. Again, it's not a blanket statement. I'm just acknowledging the possibility that it can be a sin. Okay, we're going to leave the actual situation, meaning your situation, in counseling. I mean, you got to deal with it there rather than in this show. I'm just acknowledging categories and possibilities. So yes and no is my answer. Yes, I just gave you. Now let me give you the no. No, it need not be a sinful situation. And what I mean by that is that we got to examine every situation very carefully. Okay? There might be some financial situations that are valid and very unique to the situation. And so we got to pause and we got to consider the possibility of financial transitions and other exceptions, and you may have to take care of some things. And so I'm going to at least consider those things as possibilities. There might even be some uniquely physical challenges that are involved. Maybe somebody can't walk, or maybe there's dementia, or maybe there's Parkinson's disease, or maybe there's some other things that makes it uniquely, that involves special care is what I'm trying to say. Especially if the parents reach the final years of their life, I think that does open up possibilities for living together to care for them in the final years. In fact, think about this. What if one parent passes? And usually it's the father that passes, right? And so now you have the mom and she's a widow. And in those situations, I do think that it is permissible for you to consider caring for the widow. You know that's a biblical concept, right? Providing exceptional care for widows. If your mom is a widow, you might want to consider that. And you know what, about 8 years ago when my father-in-law died and my mother-in-law became a widow, and there's a number of siblings in our family, we all offered the invitation for the mother-in-law to come and live because we knew how difficult it was for her. But you know what? She's a very private person, and understandably, she chose to live alone, and she's living a really good life. And you know what? But again, my point is the category had been opened, and I think it's fine that you have to extend special invitations and special care for widows. You guys remember John chapter 19 when Jesus was hanging on the cross and he looked down on the disciple John, and then he looked down on his mother, and then he connected them together because he wanted to make sure that his own mother was cared for in or after he passed. And so all of those things, I think, open up the possibilities that under special circumstances you would be able to provide care. Speaking of care, I'm going to bring this in, that in the Bible it does talk about material provision and physical care for aging parents. And so it's not like you leave and you never look back. It's not as simple as that. So I do believe that it does open up that responsibility, there's a good word, where you do provide material care. Now I'm going to stop right there because I'm going to talk about that in a later show. All I'm doing is opening up categories of propriety. And so, is it a sin to live with your in-laws or your parents? The answer is yes and no. Okay, and hopefully that made sense. If you have a question or a comment, drop it inside the scroll. Stuart will track it down and he will relay that to me. But want to say ideally it's about physical separation. Pack the bags, let's go. Okay, physically move out of the situation. Now in my counseling, people have asked, well then, how far do you move? Okay, Dr. Don, would you drop that in the scroll? How far do you move away from your parents? Can you live next door? You know, a lot of in-laws actually live literally next door. Is that okay? How about 1 block away? 1 town? 1 city? I mean, how far do you go? 1 state? Country? You know, the other side of the world? You know, get on the Starship Enterprise and go to a different galaxy or solar system? Boldly go where no son-in-law or daughter-in-law has gone before? How far do you go? You know, my response to that is this. You know what? You can jump on the Starship Enterprise and go really, really far away. And I'm going to say, you might still have in-law problems. Okay? In fact, there are people that have in-law problems even after their in-laws have passed away. How is that possible? They're not even alive. Well, if you still feel obligated, if you still are emotionally attached in an unhealthy way, those things still go on. How crazy is that? And then there are those, conversely, who live right next door and have no problems at all. Everything is just fine. And so I'm going to say there is no, write this down, there is no biblical measure of distance. Okay? Close, far, it's not the point. It's about having a healthy relationship, okay? And you can have that right next door, or you can have that on the other side of the world, okay? And so in my case, most of my marriage, 32 years, okay, has, my parents have been on the other side of the world. And, you know, we had a pretty healthy in-law relationship. About 4 years ago, they moved very close to us. Now they're like 30 minutes away. And we've maintained the same healthy relationship. So what, 30 minutes away or 17 hours away on the other side of the world? Doesn't even matter, okay? The real issue becomes a healthy relationship, or in this case, the emotional connection, the sense of obligation, things like that. That can get a little crazy, okay? So, what's the test question is, did you leave physically? That's number 1. Number 2 is, did you leave emotionally? Now we're answering the big question on the top, which is, did you really leave? And we're trying to answer 3 sub-questions to flesh that out. The first is, did you leave physically? Yes or no? How about number 2? Did you leave emotionally? Yes or no? Based on Genesis chapter 2, verse 24, it does involve an emotional separation. And I'm going to say, this is one of the hardest things to do. Now, I talked about this in the very first talk show. You can check it out in the Units tab. In-laws, the first conversation there, I talked about the emotional connection and how that all evolved. I'm not going to review all that because I do want you to stitch all the shows together. And, you know, you can do that on your own. I don't want to review all of that, and we don't have the time for that. And so please check that out and review that. This is really hard. Experts call it the parent-child relationship. Think about it. You spend what? 20 years? 30 years? I mean, when did you get married? In your 20s, 30s, 40s? And so you think about all those years that you spent in that parent-child dynamic. Your parents, you know, they function a certain way, you function as a child, and then you suddenly get married. And my point is, it's hard to just flip the switch and go in a different direction. Oftentimes, it's very, very hard. And so can I clarify some things for you here? Okay, we're talking about emotional separation here. That's what we're talking about. And I'm going to say, first of all, that emotional separation is not a disconnection, okay? I'm just elaborating on what it means to leave emotionally or separate yourself emotionally. That emotional separation is not a disconnection. You should still care. You should still show love and concern. You know, don't take this too far where you completely disconnect and abandon and show no concern, because that's wrong, okay? And we'll talk about that more in a future show. The second thing I want to elaborate on is that emotional separation removes the need for approval. Check it out in the scroll, Dr. Don. Thank you for putting it in. Emotional separation removes the need for approval. Let me explain. All your life, as a child, you sought the approval of your parents. Think about it. That's what you did. That's essentially what the dynamic that we're referring to, okay? You want to please mom and dad. You want to make them proud of you. You want to put your artwork on the refrigerator door. You want them to gush all over it and be proud of it. You want to show them your good report card, right? Or hide the bad report card because you don't want to see their disapproval. You know what I mean? It's all about this dynamic of approval and so forth. And now you get married. And it's hard to flip the switch. But it is about an important transition where now your heart is given to your spouse. And it's about winning the approval of your spouse. Winning the heart of your spouse. And sometimes that's going to mean, listen, that's going to mean that it's going to be at the expense, or it might be at the expense of your parents' approval. You know, God forbid that that happens, but the truth is that happens more often than not, that you're caught in the middle and you have to make a decision in those situations. And so we want to say that, you know what, it's about the approval of your spouse at the end of the day. Hey, if you can make both sides happy, that'll be great. But sometimes that is not possible, all right? Here's the third thing that I want to elaborate, and that is emotional separation removes the obligation of loyalty, okay? You know, when you were young, okay, love your parents, you were obligated to be loyal to them, okay? But when you get married, okay, that obligation stops, okay? You are no longer obligated to be loyal to them, okay? You still love them, you still care for them, but you know what? When you are caught in the middle, I'm talking about the guy usually, okay? Because sometimes the woman can be, or the wife can be caught in the middle too. But when you're caught in the middle and you got to choose, you got to slide over to your spouse, okay? Because when you get married, okay, emotional separation, loyalty, I'm applying now. You want to make sure that the loyalty is over to your spouse. You know, if you're really in the middle and your head is swiveling and you want to try to be loyal to both sides, I tell you, that is a very precarious situation. Experts call that the man in the middle. He's trying to please both sides, and usually he gets into a lot of trouble. He just wants to make everybody happy. He wants the problem to go away. But sometimes he causes a bigger problem if he sides with his mother or in some way shows loyalty to his family. And let's say that happens at a Christmas party, some holiday event. Let me tell you, that car ride back home is not going to be a pleasant one, because you might get an earful from your wife who did not appreciate the fact that you did not show loyalty to her at a family function. And that night, you might be sleeping on the couch. You know what I'm talking about? And so, listen, this is not a matter of right and wrong, okay? I'm not saying that your wife is always right and that's why you slide over, okay? I'm not saying your mother-in-law is always wrong and that's why you got to get away from her. Yeah, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about showing loyalty and protection and commitment. You got to slide over and figure out a way to always protect your spouse. Questions, please.
All right. Hannah is asking, does honoring parents apply to the loyalty aspect as said in the 10 Commandments?
Hannah, thank you for that. I will talk about honor in a minute, okay? It won't be enough, so I'm going to apologize in advance. I also want to say that I'm going to talk about honor in a separate show. I'm going to dedicate a whole separate show to that. I appreciate the reference to the 10 Commandments. In fact, it is mentioned again in Deuteronomy, and it's mentioned in the New Testament again in Ephesians chapter 6. And so we recognize that it crosses over and there becomes a universal command to always honor the parents. And so thank you for that. Definitely we need to honor the parents, but we have to separate the two. And I'm just going to introduce the concept right now. We're going to separate the two, honor and loyalty. Okay, I'm going to separate them. And I promised you I'm going to give you a whole show dedicated to this. It will probably make more sense later, but right now, separate the two. And I'm going to say you can show loyalty to your spouse, and you can still show honor to your parents. How is that possible? We're going to have to figure this out. But right now, I don't want you to mix it together, okay? And show that that's all. In other words, if you do that, what's going to happen is, if you're going to give loyalty to your parents, which you have to, if you mix it all together, what happens? That means the loyalty also goes to your parents. That's a problem. Separate the two. Loyalty to the spouse, okay? You're not obligated to show loyalty anymore, okay? Maybe there's even a better word than loyalty, but right now we're going to use it. You want to show commitment, okay, towards your spouse. You can still give honor to your parents, and we want to make sure that those are two separate things. So let me stop right there. Okay, Stuart, was there another question there?
George Joey has a question too.
Joey.
How do we deal with upset parents when you side with your wife?
All right, that's very relevant. Okay, very relevant, George. Upset parents, it's bound to happen, because I did say about 5 minutes ago that oftentimes when you slide over, that it could be at the expense of, and so you picked up on it. It is definitely at the expense, and so can we use that analogy of expense? You're going to pay a price, okay? There's a big expense to be paid, and they're going to be upset, and so you know what? We're going to have to deal with it later. I'm sorry, because it involves honor. How do you honor them, and also, George, listen, honor them, and also at the same time respectfully disagree with them, okay? Maybe even position yourself in a way that you have to protect your spouse. Hey everyone, before I go any further, I want to give a plug to Dr. Don and George Joey, George Zoe. They did a fantastic show. It's actually in-law show number 2 inside the Units tab. Go check that out. He did talk about the man in the middle and being caught, and in very complicated situations where you got to kind of figure this out. So George, you're definitely right. Sometimes there's a big price to be paid when they're upset. Why I can't go further right now is because a lot of reconciling that and figuring that out involves conflict resolution stuff, okay? So how's that? I've reshuffled that towards another show, because now you're talking about conflict management. You're talking about assuaging that anger and massaging that thing. I don't want to see that I'm behind time, okay? Cut it out, Stuart. Okay, I know I'm behind time.
Just doing my job.
Just doing your job? Stop doing your job. All right, I'm going to keep on going. I only got 3 test questions here right now, but thank you for that. If you have more questions, please stop me. And I'm just saying, okay, getting back to that, Hannah, separate honor, loyalty towards your spouse, honor towards your parents. Separate it right now. I know it doesn't make full sense. We'll deal with that later in another show, but we're talking about emotional separation, and so put the honor over, loyalty over here. We'll deal with honor there. All right, we're still elaborating on these things, okay? Did I elaborate on them? Okay, I gave you all the elaborations. Boy, I'm kind of lost track of where I was so far. Again, the big question, okay? Dr. Don, could you drop the big question again, please? Did you really leave? The 3 questions that I'm unpacking, answer yes or no, please. And the first one was, did you leave physically? Number 2, did you leave emotionally? And number 3, okay, drop it in the scroll, please. Did you leave their authority? Did you leave their authority? Now, leaving in Genesis 2:24 involves many things. Physical leaving, emotional leaving, and leaving their authority. It's a separation of authority, okay? So when you get married, you instantly establish a new authority that separates you from your parents. This is new. Prior to this, there was one authority, your parents. They were the authority, and you were obligated to obey them. It was as simple as that. They're the parents, you're the child, okay? There's really no discussion there, okay? It was your job to obey. Children's obey, right? Ephesians chapter 6. That's it. Simple as that, okay? No discussion. But all of that changed when you got married. And so part of leaving now brings about this huge change that is, again, it's going to take some time to adjust, okay? I get that. So, can I say it this way? Prior to marriage, okay, you were under one authority, and so your main obligation was what? Obedience to that one authority, obeying your parents, right? But now, I did say a second ago that it has changed. And if it has changed, follow me. I'm going to elaborate on a few things now. And Hannah, I'm going to comment a little bit on honor too, okay? So hang in there. I'm going to say, and Dr. Don, please put these clarifications inside the scroll, okay? Let me clarify this for you. Okay, talking about test question number 3, did you leave their authority? I'm going to say obedience is no longer an obligation. Wow, did you get that? Obedience is no longer an obligation. I know that in some cultures, parents and in-laws have a really hard time with this. In fact, they demand obedience. I don't care if you're 50 years old, you're still my son, you better obey what I say. So there's that type of mindset in some of the cultures. But I'm going to clarify that there are some things you must always give to your parents, okay? And some things will change once you get married. Hannah, are you ready for this? Okay? I'm going to say some things must always be given to your parents. Hannah, what is it? Drop it inside the scroll. I'm giving you a pop quiz. It begins with the letter H. Honor must always be given to your parents, okay? But once you get married, you are no longer obligated to obey them. So now we're going to separate two words again. Obedience, honor. You get married, you are no longer under their authority. You don't have to obey them, okay? When you were young, you had to obey everything. But now, you're older, you're married, you are not under that obligation anymore. However, honor remains. Dr. Don, please put those two words. Honor remains. You must continue to honor them. That must never change. Honor your father and mother, and that includes all children, including you, adult children. That will never change. In fact, you need to bury them with honor. And so in every way, we want to honor them till they pass. But remember, we're making a separation here. Honor goes to the parents. Obedience now changes. Loyalty, commitment goes toward your spouse. Can I continue to clarify here? I'm making actually pretty good time here. You must not sacrifice your marriage authority. Drop that in the scroll, please, Dr. Don. You must not sacrifice your marriage authority. Remember, you're no longer under your parents' authority, so I don't know what the official term is that. I'm just calling it marriage authority now. This new authority that you have, talking about that situation, that marriage authority is at stake. And if you end up obeying your parents, you are really messing this up, okay? And so you want to make sure that the honor is maintained here. Again, that's going to be another show. But you want to make sure that your marriage authority is kept intact. So you don't want to just give all your obedience here and continue to complicate your own new marriage authority. Let me clarify some more. You must not make decisions with your parents without your spouse. Let me say that again. You must not make decisions with your mom and dad without your spouse. Do I need to explain this one? It's such a no-brainer. I mean, come on. You better not be doing that, okay? Like make decisions about whatever. Things that will offend your spouse, make all kinds of important financial decisions or, big decisions about where you go to church or send the kids to school, education, finance decisions, and leave your spouse out of that decision? That's wrong, okay? I'm not going to say anymore because it's so wrong. Don't do it, all right? Let's move on to the next point of clarification, and that is you must not leverage your parents/in-laws' authority to manipulate your spouse. I know that was long. You might want to read it in the scroll. Dr. Don's going to drop it in there, and just read it carefully. Let me read that again. You must not leverage your parents/in-laws' authority to manipulate your spouse. Now, I put this in because, again, all kinds of authority lines get blurred, and I've dealt with this in counseling. I've observed it, and this is messed up, all right? I'm saying that, okay, let's say, here's a scenario. You want your spouse to do something, right? But your spouse is not willing to do it. So you're like, how am I going to get my husband to do it? Oh, I know. I'm going to call his mom. And so the wife calls the mom and talks to the mom and says, hey, blah, 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 I want my husband to do it. Can you talk to your son? And so now the mom calls the son with the authority of mom, talking now to the son as if he is still under that authority, and tries to convince him to do it. What is that? What is this kind of circular manipulation that is going on? I've seen this way too many times. Why? Because in everybody's mind, even the wife's mom who calls the mom, wife who calls the mom, in all of those situations, everybody's thinking that we're still in the parent-child relationship. So I'm telling you right now, you better go back into the units tab and look at show number 1 on in-laws, where I unfold what the whole parent-child dynamic is. And I'm saying don't do it, okay? The parent-child dynamic is all about having, or I should say, you got to evolve from that into a adult relationship. Adults don't do that. Adults don't manipulate. Adults mutually respect. Adults have their own lines of authority, and they mutually respect one another and humble themselves before one another. And so all of those things are at play. Well, I only ran a few minutes over, right, Stu? Okay, you're not mad at me, are you? Okay, all right. Oh, he flashed the clock at me. Oh, that means he's mad at me. All right, so gonna wrap it up with my final words here by saying that's it for tonight. The big question is, did you really leave your parents? Did you really leave? And we have 3 test questions underneath them. Yes or no? Yes is the good answer. Number 1, did you leave physically? Number 2, did you leave emotionally? Number 3, did you leave their authority? Yes or no? Okay. Yes is the right answer. How'd you do on the test? Okay. Drop it in the scroll, please. Let me know. Anybody get a perfect score? Okay. Let me know if you got a perfect score. We'll do a little happy dance for you and celebrate, because it's possible. Doesn't mean you're perfect. You're still a dirty, rotten sinner that needs the grace of God. Okay. But in this particular area, you might be perfect, meaning God's doing a good work. So give praise to God. Stuart, anybody get a perfect score?
No one's admitting to it yet.
No one's admitting to it. Okay. Maybe it's a little complicated. Now I'm going to say, in closing, for further insight, go back to the first show and the second show. For the record, this is the 3rd show on in-laws, okay? And thank you to George, who's doing an excellent job of archiving all of that. You'll be able to find what you need very easily. There, in the first show, I explained the parent-child dynamic and about having an adult relationship. In the second show in there, it talks about the man in the middle. And in our show today, we talked about all the complications related to actually leaving your parents. Well, that's it for tonight. Okay, we thank God that we survived the technical difficulties. George, if you would drop our website in, titus2ministry.org, and go check that out. Also, drop in our newsletter. We'd love for you to subscribe and keep in touch with us. And you know what? Our community is growing. I'm giving thanks to God for that. Go tell a friend about the Titus 2 community, would you? And tell them also about our Talk Live Tuesday show. Every Tuesday. It won't always be me, but there'll be other great speakers coming up in the near future. We've had good ones in the past. Go check that out inside the Units tab there. Every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. And in closing, I want to just remind you that our prayers are with you. If you need prayer or any kind of support, please contact us publicly or privately. Message us. If you need counseling, hey, that's where the real situations are unpacked. If you need that, contact us as well. We'll be glad to help you. And so that's it for tonight. God bless you guys. We thank God that we survived the technical difficulties. We'll see you guys next time on Talk Live Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us for a devotional drink today. If you love Espresso, click here to subscribe so you know when the next one is ready to enjoy. Visit our website for resources for every chapter of your life. And if you're thirsty for more, click here. See you next time. May God bless your day.